Hare Krishna, dear devotees, it's me again, Keshava Das Goswami, your friend, here in the live studios, attempting to do the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We're late because we're still struggling with the microphone. And looking at Abhaya's face, I'm getting an impression that it's not working properly. Now, Rati Manjari told me that last night it was working, but it sounded just a little hollow. Can you hear the sound?
This is what it sounds like when the sound is being picked up from the phone, not the microphone.
Yeah. You're doing something wrong. You're getting a message from someone?
Well, the Nitai says the sound is okay, and then multiple other people are saying it doesn't sound right.
Well, what can I do? I will take a vote, and all of you have to tell me what to do. Because one person says the sound's okay, and multiple devotees have said the sound's not okay. So here I am, bewildered, perplexed.
They're saying that they can hear you well anyways.
They can hear me well anyway. Okay, I think we'll start. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left us this very...
Just let it try it the way that I usually do.
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left us this fantastic, poetic glorification of the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. It goes like this. In due course, Mahāpralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage. Because after the flood has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All right, dear devotees, I'm sorry we kind of botched the beginning. My greetings to all of you, the live studios here in the Haven for the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. It looks like the microphones are working again, so we're back in business. We've reached the 14th chapter of the Antya-līlā, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic symptoms are beginning to be heard again. We're in verse 54. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed night and day by these 10 ecstatic conditions. Whenever such symptoms arose, his mind became unsteady. And we heard that long purport day before yesterday, describing the symptoms that he was feeling. Text 55. After speaking in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell silent. Then Ramananda Roy began to recite various verses. Ramananda Roy recited verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, and Swarup Damodar Goswami sang of Krishna's pastimes. In this way, they brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to external consciousness. After half the night had passed in this way, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lie down on his bed in the inner room. Then Ramananda Roy returned home, and Swarup Damodar Goswami and Govinda lay down in front of the door to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained awake throughout the entire night, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra very loudly. After some time, Swarup Damodar could no longer hear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanting. When he entered the room, he found the 3 doors locked, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was gone. All the devotees were very anxious when they saw that the Lord was not in his room. They wandered about, searching for him with a warning lamp. After searching for some time, they came upon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lying in a corner by the northern side of the Singadwara gate. At first they were overjoyed to see him, but when they saw his condition, all the devotees, headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami, were very anxious. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was lying unconscious, and his body had become elongated to 5 or 6 cubits. There was no breath from his nostrils. Each of his arms and legs had become 3 cubits long. Only skin connected the separated joints. The Lord's body temperature, indicating life, was very low. All the joints in his arms, legs, neck, and waist were separated by at least 6 inches. It appeared that only skin covered his elongated joints. Seeing the Lord's condition, all the devotees were very unhappy. They almost died when they saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his mouth full of saliva and foam and his eyes turned upward. 69. When they saw this, Swarup Damodar Goswami and all the other devotees began to chant the holy name of Kṛṣṇa very loudly into Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ear. After they had chanted in this way for a long time, the holy name of Kṛṣṇa entered the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he suddenly arose with a loud shout of Haribol. As soon as the Lord returned to external consciousness, all the joints contracted and his entire body returned to normal. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has described these pastimes elaborately in his book Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha. In the house of Kashi Mishra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes be greatly aggrieved, feeling separation from Kṛṣṇa. The joints of his transcendental body would slacken, and his arms and legs would become elongated. Rolling on the ground, the Lord would cry out in distress in a faltering voice and weep very sorrowfully. The appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakening in my heart maddens me. Purport. This verse is Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha 4. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much astonished to find himself in front of the Singadwara. He asked Swarup Damodar he asked Swarup Damodar Goswami, "Where am I? What am I doing here?" Swarup Damodar said, "My dear Lord, please get up. Let us go to your place. There I shall tell you something that has happened. There I shall tell you everything that has happened." Thus all the devotees supporting Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu took him back to his residence. Then they all described to him what had happened. Hearing the description of his condition while he had lain near the Singadwara, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was very much astonished. He said, "I do not remember any of these things. All I can remember is that I saw my Kṛṣṇa, but only for an instant. He appeared before me and then, like lightning, immediately disappeared." Just then, everyone heard the blowing of the conch shell at the Jagannath temple. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu immediately took his bath and went to see Lord Jagannath. Thus I have described the uncommon transformations of the body of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. When people hear about this, they are very much astonished. Text 81. No one has witnessed such bodily changes elsewhere, nor has anyone read of them in the revealed scriptures. Yet Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the supreme sannyasi, exhibited these ecstatic symptoms. These ecstasies are not described in the Shastras, and they are inconceivable to common men. Therefore, people in general do not believe in them. Raghunath Das Goswami lived continuously with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. I am simply recording whatever I have heard from him. Although common men do not believe in these pastimes, I believe in them totally. This is the secret for receiving, or awakening rather, our pure love for Kṛṣṇa by hearing the Caitanya-caritāmrta. If we hear with full faith that these pastimes actually happened, and that's not an easy thing to do, then we will get love of God just by hearing these pastimes. And here, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, this is his qualification for writing this book. In addition to getting the full mercy of Lord Nityananda, which gave him this realization. Raghunath Das Goswami lived continuously with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. I am simply recording whatever I have heard from him. Although common men do not believe in these pastimes, I believe in them totally. Text 84. One day, while Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was going to the sea to bathe, he suddenly saw a sand dune named Chataka Parvata. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu mistook the sand dune for Govardhan Hill and ran toward it. Lord Chaitanya said, "Of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. O my friends, this hill supplies Kṛṣṇa and Balarama, as well as their calves, cows, and cowherd friends, with all kinds of necessities, water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way the hill offers respect to the Lord. Being touched by the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa and Balarama, Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant." Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:21-18. It was spoken by the gopis when Lord Kṛṣṇa and Balarama entered the forest in the autumn. The gopis spoke among themselves and glorified Kṛṣṇa and Balaram for their pastimes. In one of our Acharya's commentaries, he reveals that that was Radharani who was speaking. Reciting this verse, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ran toward the sand dune as fast as the wind. Govinda ran after him, but he could not approach him. First, one devotee shouted loudly, and then a tumultuous uproar arose as all the devotees stood up and began to run after the Lord. Sarup Damodar Goswami, Jagadananda Pandit, Gadadhar Pandit, Ramai, Nandai, and Shankar Pandit are some of the devotees who ran after Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati also went toward the beach, and Bhagavan Acharya, who was lame, followed them very slowly. 91. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was running at the speed of the wind, but he suddenly became stunned in ecstasy and lost all strength to proceed further. The flesh at each of his pores erupted like pimples, and his bodily hairs, standing on end, appeared like kadamba flowers. Blood and perspiration flowed incessantly from every pore of his body, and he could not speak a word, but simply produced a gargling sound within his throat. The Lord's eyes filled and overflooded with unlimited tears, like the Ganges and Yamuna meeting at the sea. His entire body faded to the color of a white conch shell, and then he began to quiver like the waves in the ocean. While quivering in this way, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu fell down on the ground. Then Govinda approached him. Govinda sprinkled water from the Karanga water pot all over the Lord's body, and then taking the Lord's outer garment, he began to fan Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sarup Damodar and the other devotees reached the spot and saw the condition of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they began to cry. All 8 kinds of transcendental transformations were visible in the Lord's body. All the devotees were struck with wonder to see such a sight. Purport. The 8 ecstatic symptoms are the state of being stunned, perspiration, standing of the bodily hairs on end, faltering of the voice, fading of the body's color, tears, and devastation. 100. The devotees loudly chanted the Hare Krishna mantra near Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and washed his body with cold water. After the devotees had been chanting for a long time, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly stood up and shouted, Haribol. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu stood up, all the Vaishnavas loudly chanted, Hari, Hari, in great jubilation. The auspicious sound filled the air in all directions. Astonished, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu stood up and began looking here and there, trying to see something, but he could not catch sight of it. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu saw all the Vaishnavas, he returned to partial external consciousness and spoke to Sarup Damodar. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, Who has brought me here from Govardhan Hill? I was seeing Lord Krishna's pastimes, but now I cannot see them. Today I went from here to Govardhan Hill to find out if Krishna was tending his cows there. I saw Lord Krishna climbing Govardhan Hill, and playing his flute, surrounded on all sides by grazing cows. Hearing the vibration of Krishna's flute, Srimati Radharani and all her gopi friends came there to meet him. They were all very nicely dressed. When Krishna and Srimati Radharani entered a cave together, the other gopis asked me to pick some flowers. Just then, all of you made a tumultuous sound and carried me from there to this place. Why have you brought me here, causing me unnecessary pain? I had a chance to see Krishna's pastimes, but I could not see them. Saying this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu began to weep. When all the Vaishnavas saw the Lord's condition, they also wept. At that time, Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati arrived. Seeing them, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu became somewhat respectful. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to complete external consciousness and immediately offered prayers to them. Then these two elderly gentlemen both embraced the Lord with loving affection. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said to Puri Goswami and Brahmananda Bharati, "Why have the two of you come so far?" Puri Goswami replied, "Just to see your dancing." When he heard this, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu felt somewhat ashamed. Then he went to bathe in the sea with all the Vaishnavas. After bathing in the sea, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence with all the devotees. Then they lunched on the remnants of food offered to Lord Jagannath. Thus I have described the transcendental, ecstatic emotions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Even Lord Brahma cannot describe their influence. In his book, Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha, Raghunath Das Goswami has very vividly described Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime of running toward the Chataka Parvata sand dune. Text 120. Near Jagannath Puri is a great sand dune known as Chataka Parvata. Seeing that hill, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Oh, I shall go to the land of Braja to see Govardhan Hill." Then he began running madly toward it, and all the Vaishnavas ran after him. This scene awakens in my heart and maddens me. Purport. This verse is Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha 8. Text 121. Who can properly describe all the uncommon pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu? They are all simply his play. I have briefly described them just to give an indication of his transcendental pastimes. Nevertheless, anyone who hears this will certainly attain the shelter of Lord Kṛṣṇa's lotus feet. I have briefly described them just to give an indication of his transcendental pastimes. Nevertheless, anyone who hears this will certainly attain the shelter of Lord Kṛṣṇa's lotus feet. Text 123. Rupa Raghunatha, Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pariyara Ash, Caitanya-caritämrta, Kahe, Kṛṣṇa Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Kṛṣṇa Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritāmrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya-caritāmrta, Antya-līlā, 14th chapter, describing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental ecstatic emotions and his mistaking Chataka Parvata for Govardhan Hill. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the eternal ecstatic pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to all the followers and transcendental eternal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all of their loving devotional service to the Lord. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. So, it's a little short of time, but I think I'll stop here the reading and we'll take reflections and comments and have some discussion. Short reading today, but it was very, very potent, very deep and meaningful. I'm so happy that the microphone started to work finally. Okay.
Okay, first is something from Braj Vallabha.
Okay, Braj Vallabha, first out of the gate.
He says, Hare Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila
Jai, all
Prabhupada.
glories to Prabhupada.
He has two questions. The first, wouldn't it be amazing to hear Lord Chaitanya chant japa?
I think that would be the most amazing thing. So now we just have to become fully Krishna conscious and go to Lord Chaitanya's abode and hear him chant japa. If our desire becomes strong enough to the point of becoming lobha or transcendental greed, then it will be possible.
And his second question.
Mm.
Does it mean his body was disformed with joints extended like that?
Yes. Not to be imitated by anyone. The nice point that was made, the point that was made was that those bodily symptoms have never been shown by anyone, even in the Shastra. These are actually proofs of his transcendental position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Next is a comment from Sudevi Dasi.
Yes, Sudevi, Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, all glories to Chaitanya's nectar pastimes and its poetic grammar and your pure reading of it each day. I do not fully realize my good fortune being here, but I relish the peace of mind it brings me.
Yes.
And just want to continue hearing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sudevi, Devi Dasi. Yes, this is what we're meant to do. And therefore, people in general, materialistic people, think that we're crazy. They think that we've lost our minds because we love to hear these things so much. So the taste for hearing these things is the test of our advancement in spiritual life. So we should be engladdened. Hearing these pastimes, if we hear them with complete faith, is the same as seeing them. The sound vibration that describes them, because of the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead being absolute, is not different than He Himself. Just as the sound of His holy name, so the sound of His holy pastimes are non-different from the Lord. So we are actually associating with Sri Caitanya, Mahāprabhu. How that is so will be revealed to us gradually as we perfect our Krishna consciousness.
Next is something from Gopal Roy.
Gopal Roy, Hari Bol.
He says, Dear Maharaj, this is so sweet. Generally we hear Lord Chaitanya was in the mood of Srimati Radharani. We also see throughout Caitanya-caritämrta that Mahāprabhu takes on other moods, like that of a manjari shown in this chapter. Would the Lord float in between different moods and rasa throughout his pastimes? For example, would he sometimes be in the mood of a servant or friend of Kṛṣṇa?
Well, yes. We've heard already how he takes the mood of Lord Nrsimhadev. We've heard already how he takes the mood of Hanuman when he's doing drama. We've heard him take the mood of Balaram. We've heard him take the mood and show the mood of I had another one in my mind, but I just lost it. Anyway, yes, he does show the moods of his different devotees in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he's appearing as a perfect devotee of Kṛṣṇa, and he shows all those things. But the overriding mood was his mood of Srimati Radharani. In other words, he's inconceivable, and he can do anything. And when we have full faith in that, when we actually understand or accept that he is achintya, he's inconceivable, then we will begin to taste more and more from that point. Until we can actually perceive that they're true. Hare Krishna.
Next from Bhakta Ben.
Haribol Bhakta Ben.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila
Jai, all
Prabhupada.
glories to Prabhupada.
Krishnadas Kaviraj said that anyone who hears this will attain shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. I wondered if this benediction is for simply hearing the sound vibration with the ears, or does he mean actually hearing faithfully with the heart?
It means hearing faithfully from the heart, but just by hearing it, we become eligible for it. But it's a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. It means the shelter at the feet of Lord Chaitanya is guaranteed. It's just a matter of time. That's also inconceivable. And therefore, when we have full faith, we don't doubt it at all, and we are accelerated to that state of consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Next from Rati Manjari.
Jai Rati.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for your determined efforts to administer this wonderful medicine to us, night after night. I missed it yesterday. Today, despite my ocean of disqualification and distraction, I became enthused by hearing the pastime. Also because of the powerful benedictions that were hidden in there, by Srila Kṛṣṇa Kaviraj. So encouraging.
Well, all I can say is about that is you should count your lucky stars and build your house of bhakti on gratitude for being able to hear in that way and appreciate these pastimes in that way. This is causeless mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Imagine, he's translating this supreme nectar and then distributing it on the streets of America and all the other countries of the world. It's inconceivable. He never compromised. He never watered it down. He gave everything. And those people who say that, everything isn't in Prabhupada's books, they can't hear. There's one book, it may be Harinam-Chintamani, but it was one of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's books. And in the beginning of the book, he gives the blessing to the persons who don't believe it, that they can't understand it. And then he says, and this makes me very happy. So it sounds contradictory. Why? How can you be happy by hearing that someone can't understand it? But it means that this literature, these literatures and these intimate pastimes are meant to be protected. They're so rare, like a rare gem or something that's very delicate, that they have to, put in a protective case just to protect it. Hare Krishna. So even though we may not be able to hear it all, we may not be able to reap the full benefits, we did get that benediction from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, that if you just hear it, you will attain the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. So have full faith in that. And even if you aren't there yet, know that you will be. It's just a matter of time. That doesn't mean, now I'm finished, now I can sit back and do nothing, and eventually that will just come to me. No, we have to continue our intense devotional service, continue to hear, continue to chant our rounds, to continue to follow the principles, continue to try to share this nectar with others. In that way, live out our lives so that we can go back to home, back to Godhead, and perceive all these things completely with our spiritual senses. Hare Krishna.
Next is something from Vrajaloka Devi Dasi.
Haribol Vrajaloka.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
All glories to your daily readings. Thank you very much for helping us to relish these very elevated pastimes of the Lord. It is definitely not my level, but I try to appreciate it as it was recommended. Only by hearing these elevated pastimes do I feel more humble. What caught my attention was today the detail that when older superiors arrived, the Lord came into a mood of respect and fully returned to his outward consciousness. Could you please elaborate on this if you think that it has some importance? Thank you so much, your servant.
Well, in the case of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very, very attached and that everyone would follow the social etiquettes. The etiquettes are very important because they help us become receptive. The more we can follow the etiquettes and treat one another properly according to our social positions and our spiritual generation and ashram and consciousness, then the more we become, how do I say, adjusted, and as we become adjusted, as our habits and our body becomes spiritualized by taking only Krishna prasadam and following all the rules and regulations, becoming extremely clean and neat and seeing everything, as belonging to Krishna, so we can treat every single thing that we have for our to live in this world and to do our service to Krishna as extremely special because they belong to Krishna. All the devotees, they belong to Krishna. Then as our body and minds become adjusted by these arrangements, by following these etiquettes and these spiritual principles in our lives, then we become eligible to come into the presence of the Lord. The Lord being the most exalted personality, in order to actually be allowed into His presence and associate with Him directly, you have to be qualified, very, very qualified. But in the form of Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, He's giving everyone these visions and showing people how to act by His own personal example. Hare Krishna.
And there's a question from Sudevi.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi.
She said, you said it's a matter of time, so we can take it as a promise that we will attain Krishna's lotus feet.
Yes.
And does it go for my late mom as well?
Yes, of course. Because you become a devotee, she will attain the lotus feet of Krishna eventually. We can't say when. We don't want to just accept these things sentimentally and just emotionally. But we can say from what we hear, if we accept it, that we can say it with conviction that yes, it's just a matter of time. How long that takes, that will depend on the individual soul. But this special darshan of hearing these books from Srila Prabhupada and in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so close to his appearance, gives us that special mercy. Hare Krishna. Actually, every soul in the universe is delivered when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes into the universe. How that is beyond our perception. So the point is, when you can accept something that's beyond our perception to be true, to actually be true, then we become closer and closer. As the depth of that faith grows, we become closer and closer to the qualifications to be able to enter into the pastimes of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
She says, thank you. It helps me a lot to hear because I still grieve for her.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone. Sri Caitanya-caritāmrta ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. We'll see you tomorrow night. Same place, same time, same topic. the ecstatic pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll hear more of the transcendental symptoms of the devotional service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.